Mr. Speaker, barring declarations of war, impeachment is the most awesome power that Congress has. It shouldn't be a threat. It shouldn't be a political exercise. It's certainly not a pledge to be made on the campaign trail. This is the most serious business that we can engage in. No one should want to impeach a president. You can't take any pleasure in that. But after months of blocked investigations by agencies in this administration, it became clear that an impeachment inquiry was the only course of action to complete our necessary and important investigations. And let me explain why, because there's been some confusion and some controversy about this. Mr. Speaker, there are three irrefutable facts that have taken us to this point. Number one, President Biden lied directly to the American people. Number two, President Biden's family and their associates profited millions through shell companies. Number three, President Biden's federal agencies are stonewalling our legitimate congressional inquiry. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many scandals. There's so much corruption that's being uncovered. Every stone that we overturn leads to more and more corruption. And because of that, Mr. Speaker, a lot of the American people are simply getting lost in the barrage of evidence, in the barrage of allegations of corruption and the evidence itself. Let me go through just a couple of highlights here to bring everybody's attention to this, to help explain why we're doing what we're doing. In August 2019, President Biden said, quote, "I have never discussed with my son or my brother or anyone else anything having to do with their businesses, period." 2 months later, he said, quote, "I never discussed a single thing with my son about anything having to do with Ukraine. No one has indicated I have. We've always kept everything separate," unquote. He then doubled down on those claims during the debates, and both Jen Psaki and Karine Jean-Pierre have echoed that straight from the White House press briefing room. Make no mistake about this. Everyone now knows those were all bold-faced lies. While President Biden was vice president, we know now that he had dinner at least twice with his son Hunter and Russian and Kazakhstani oligarchs. He spoke on the phone many times with Hunter's associates, at least over 20 times, at least that many we know. He met with CEFC, that's a Chinese energy company, while Hunter was working on their behalf. Now, here's a text message from Hunter Biden alone that is justification for an inquiry. Quote, "Z, please have the director call me, not James or Tony or Jim. Have him call me tonight. I am sitting here with my father, and we would like to understand why the commitment made has not been fulfilled," unquote. A confidential human source known well to the FBI and relied upon often alleged that President Biden received a $5 million bribe for services rendered. The House Oversight Committee investigation has been going on for a while, and the investigation has yielded many important facts. The investigators have found, here's a couple of samples. Number one, they found that Hunter Biden flew on Air Force Two at least 15 times and engaged in activities which Devin Archer testified was to sell the brand and enrich the Biden family. They found an email from Biden associate James Gillard which breaks down the profit agreement for a deal involving the Chinese Communist Party-linked CEFC, including, quote, tin held by H for the big guy, unquote. They found a text message later that month from Gillard to Tony Bobulinski which read, quote, "Don't mention Joe being involved. It's only when you are face to face. I know that you know that, but they are paranoid," unquote. This is just a sampling of what we already know. Now, this impeachment inquiry will offer House investigators greater subpoena authority to receive information from evasive federal agencies. See, we have been impeded in the collection of all this evidence because the federal agencies under the executive branch are openly, aggressively trying to protect the president. We're going to have advanced authority now and a larger platform to share this information with the American people. Mr. Speaker, remember how we arrived here. When the New York Post reported the existence of the Hunter Biden laptop, now Secretary of State Anthony Blinken organized a group of 51 former intelligence officials to claim the laptop was Russian disinformation. Social media accounts were banned from sharing the story, and individuals who believed it were labeled Russian assets and conspiracy theorists. We now know that not only was the laptop not Russian disinformation, of course, it was known previously to the intel community And many of the individuals that signed that letter, they knew it was legitimate. They knew it was not Russian disinformation. They knew it came from Hunter Biden, and they hid it from the American people. And on July 4th, just a couple of months ago, the Federal District Court in the Western District of Louisiana, my home state, issued a 155-page court opinion. The state of Louisiana and the state of Missouri sued the Biden administration because they had a hunch and they knew that the White House and its agencies, including the FBI, the DOJ, other federal agencies, were engaged in a cover-up. They were censoring and silencing the viewpoints of Americans that disagreed with. They would not allow conservative speech on the social media platforms. And we know from the evidence produced in that case and listed in the 155 court opinion that issued an injunction against the White House, by the way, just on last Saturday, upheld by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit, the court points out that Elvis Chan, the FBI official in the San Francisco field office of the FBI, was meeting regularly with the big tech platforms in Silicon Valley there, regularly leading up to the election and telling them things that they had to pull off the internet, that conservative voices and social media postings that they didn't want people to see. The FBI coerced, the court said, and then coordinated with the big tech giants to make sure that on Facebook and Google and Twitter at the time and all these other platforms that you couldn't see that information. And it wasn't just the Hunter Biden laptop story. It was a lot of categories of things. It included negative information about the economy. It included people's opinions, conservatives' opinions about the efficacy of COVID vaccines and the lockdowns and how crazy that was and what they were doing to school children. All that stuff was censored. They even took down jokes about the president. If you posted parody about President Biden, or even as a candidate or when he was elected, it was pulled off the internet. It's unbelievable, staggering. The judge says in the judge's words in the court that this is arguably the largest and the greatest attack on free speech in U.S. history. He called it Orwellian. He said it was dystopian. This is what we're facing. This is what this White House has been involved in. They did not want the American people to have the facts. And that's one of the reasons that we have to go to this next step. That's why, Mr. Speaker, we have to follow these facts where they lead. The facts are irrefutable. They have understandably set Washington ablaze, even though the American people weren't able to see it. The judge said millions of free speech protected postings were taken down from the internet, not seen. But it has set Washington ablaze. Why? Because we're bringing these facts to bear. We're laying them out for people to see. Our colleagues here, some of them don't want to see it. But as John Adams said, facts are stubborn things. And as expected, the D.C. and the National Press Corps have blindly accepted the White House's spin. And they're trying to convince the American people that our inquiry, even the impeachment inquiry, is illegitimate. Just 3 years after they carried the water for Adam Schiff and the Democrats on their crazy impeachment quest against Donald Trump. Here's a sampling of the headlines so far. Now remember, we just announced the impeachment inquiry step yesterday. Here it is so far from Time Magazine. Biden inquiry may be weakest in history. Oh, yeah. From CNN, the most predictable impeachment investigation in American history. From Reuters, McCarthy opens long-shot impeachment probe of Biden. From MSNBC, McCarthy's Biden impeachment inquiry is the Benghazi investigation on steroids. These headlines are going to increase. We know it's coming. We know that they're working against us, against the American people in this case, and for the White House. They're on their team. We get it. CNN is reporting this week that the White House is urging news executives to ramp up scrutiny of our investigation. In fact, now there's a memo going around they sent to all the big news agencies. As if weaponizing the federal agencies wasn't enough, President Biden is now publicly directing the free press to play defense for him. And you know what? They're willingly going along with it. Mr. Speaker, why? I'm just going to ask this question. It's a rhetorical one. Nobody can answer it here, of course, but we're trying to seek the answers to this. I think we know. Why? If there was no impropriety, why wouldn't the president provide congressional investigators with all the information we've requested? What do they have to hide? The president could make the short trip from 1600 Pennsylvania tomorrow. He could sit down with our committees. He could clear his name. We could do that behind closed doors. We could do it very discreetly with all the protection he needs. In fact, we'd welcome it. I mean, let this be an open invitation to President Biden. I know the White House is recording all this. They're watching what we do here. Here's the open invitation. President Biden, Secretary Blinken, any of the Biden family members and associates, or anyone who seeks to clear their name. Anybody involved in this investigation at all, you can come right here. You are welcome here in Congress to our committees. We on the House Judiciary Committee, House Oversight Committee, Weaponization Committee, the Ways and Means Committee, any of them. Pick your committee, and we'll bring you in, and you can clear your name. Mr. Speaker, we would love to return our full focus to our regular and important work here. But the facts and our sworn oath to defend the Constitution require this inquiry. And I'll close this with this, and I'm going to bring up a couple of my colleagues who will share their thoughts as well. But remember that Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution itself expressly states that the sole power of impeachment belongs here to this House. And then Article 2, Section 4 says, listen to the language carefully, it's expressly written in the Constitution. This is not political talking points. We're not making this up. It says in Article 2, Section 4 that the President shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. My friends, I just listed just a small sampling, just the tip of the iceberg of the credible allegations and the mounting evidence that shows that Joseph Biden has engaged in bribery schemes, pay-to-play schemes. This is what the evidence shows. We have to follow it. We took an oath to uphold the Constitution. The Constitution requires this action. The inquiry is the appropriate step. We have no choice to pursue the facts wherever they lead, and we will leave no stone unturned.
Because the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that